Mush love from the mushroom. How you doing? I'm super excited today. We are talking to, I didn't even know her name. I'm not sure if we're going to share it on the real thing, but Mollie, mollified, Mollie Mycelium, favorite people to follow on social media. Seems like a lot of people actually seem to say that. I feel like you just talk. I don't know how much you plan what you're saying. It feels like it's really well thought out and planned. And sometimes
Mhm.
like is she just talking, but it resonates with so many people. And I see all the comments, people are like, that's exactly how I feel. Which it's awesome to have so many people resonate and feel similarly.
Right.
But wanted to talk to you, want to learn a little bit more about you, and then just talk
Sure.
about your journey and how it's intersected with mushrooms, mycelia, mycelium, psilocybin, all mushrooms, all of that. So
Hell
I
yeah.
guess you want to start off, tell us a little bit about you, what you,
Oh,
where you're from.
I would love to. I gotta say thank you, man. Like you are one of the earliest and first people who saw me and was like, you've got something to say. And so your encouragement has been so cool. I appreciate it so much. But okay, so my name is Mollie Talbot. I don't mind sharing my name. Maybe I shouldn't, but I'll learn later.
Exactly.
So I live in Kansas City, Missouri, but 3 years ago I moved here from Denver. So I have kind of a storied past. I grew up in Kansas City, but it's where I became like a raging addict. I became a real bad like pillhead and alcoholic while I lived in Kansas City, and then moved to Denver and ended up getting sober. But like a lot of people who get
What
sober, if oh, go
what
ahead.
drew you to get sober there?
What'd you say?
What drew you to get sober? Anything in particular, or
Okay, so I went through an intervention. Like I had a whole full blown like my life kind of shit the bed in 2014. And I had moved out to Colorado with this dude I was dating, and we had been dating long distance, so I was able to hide how bad of an alcoholic I was until I moved out there. And he was like, whoa, you've got some issues, like we can't keep finding these bottles, chick. Like, so he actually kind of saved my life though, because he worked with my family behind my back and was like, we got to get her some help. So they sprung it on me in December of 2014, and I was pissed at everybody because it was like a full-blown sit down, you're in the center of an intervention. And I was like, whoa, I thought we were just gonna have like Christmas.
is that around when the show Intervention was big? I feel like I was watching the show around then.
Yes. And you have to understand that like people who watch the show Intervention were like, well, I could hold one of these myself, right?
No, but
No.
yeah, those are intense.
Don't ever hold an intervention without a professional there. Like, I love my family and I wouldn't change a thing because it saved my life. But there was a lot of harm that can come from going through a process like that if you don't understand trauma and addiction.
Mm,
So, as a result of that, that's actually kind of a good segue. But if you get sober without a good understanding, or if you're an addict without understanding trauma, and you've been raised to believe that addiction or homelessness and those are just results of moral failure. Like I was raised in the Bible Belt, so a lot of real conservative. Like my parents are. My dad is a senior master sergeant in the Air Force. Like I
mhm.
was raised very, very conservative. Like at the age of 5, my favorite thing was a B-17 bomber, and I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. And I was like, I was going to be a politician for the Republican Party. Like I was dead set. That's my family. Like that's kind of my inheritance. And so my journey of becoming an addict was always kind of that push against that. Like I don't feel this same way. I don't believe these things. Life shit the bed. And then it was like, well, I can't trust myself if I became an addict. So I better start trusting other people. So I jumped into the church. And it was like, okay, all those beliefs that my
Wait,
family had.
so you didn't grow up religious in the church.
Not really. We grew up, there's something in the church people call creasters, which I think is hilarious, but they're just the people who go to church on Christmas and Easter.
Got you.
And
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's kind of what we were. Like
yeah.
my family was very spiritual as far as like believing in the evangelical God, but it was all just shame
Right.
spirituality,
Yeah.
like
So then,
obedience.
so you got sober and then went big into the church.
Like, I mean, that's the thing is it's like it doesn't take long hanging out with me before you realize that like I pivot and I pivot real fast.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I got to get this shame away from me. Like, I feel so terrible about all of these things that are my fault that I did, because that was my belief, that the church helped me kind of scaffold that of like, okay, I can have community and find maybe some beauty in the shit that I did that was so hurtful. But the problem with the way that I was looking at it was that it was still, I made all these wrong choices, you know? And so the shame was always still there. And so inevitably, I had some kids got postpartum depression. And that is what connected me to a 9-month research project hidden away from all of my Christian friends and even my husband. I was like, I don't know, as like a 4-year stone cold sober addict, how people would feel about me researching psilocybin.
So how did you know to research psilocybin? Because I feel like someone who's big into the church is probably not exposed to that. Did you ever, I guess, when you were partying early on, did you ever try mushrooms? Were you ever exposed to it then?
Hell yes.
Okay, cool.
One of my most fond memories, and still like even when I went into the church, I was like, there was a time on mushrooms. I was at there used to be a music festival in Washington called Sasquatch.
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's in the Columbia River Gorge, so it's like it's beautiful. Well, I ate a whole bunch of mushrooms with this Canadian dude, and ended up having like a spiritual experience. You know what I mean? Like
of course. Yeah.
the music, the people, the clouds. At one point, I think I did a TikTok video about this, but I ate a cheeseburger with this dude. Like, because I think maybe we put the shrooms on the cheeseburger or something. I don't even remember, but it was such a grand time, best cheeseburger I've ever had. But my stomach got upset because at this time I was probably drinking and everything else, but I threw up, and I threw up next to this cow pasture. So it was like this full circle crazy moment of like, I'm eating you and
Yes.
you're looking at me. And it was, I mean, it was a little scary, a little intimidating for a minute, but it changed so many perspectives real quickly of like the interconnection between animals and people. And I mean, and that's kind of like that draw of people like me who are deep thinkers and can get stuck in some of these thoughts and be like, man, am I the only one who is thinking like this? Or maybe it is something wrong with me. I think there's something that happens when you can take an entheogen for the first time and you're like, wait, this is like, there's a purpose behind all of these thoughts. Like there's interconnectivity happening here. And I want to explore it more.
Definitely. I think that's one of the most common, I feel like, results from doing mushrooms is you realize the interconnected of animals, of the planet, of each other. I think something like that, a profound feeling I feel like I had with mushrooms is like we're all connected. That's why I like helping people so much, because I think it really means it's helping myself because we're all in this together.
I see that in you, dude. You do that well.
I think mushrooms, yeah, definitely have that affect a lot of people. So that was an awesome story. I love hearing trip stuff like that. But then fast forward back to you get postpartum depression. You're researching it because actually, I feel like when I did mushrooms and was like partying and stuff, I definitely had some spiritual experiences, and it was therapeutic in its own way of like just making me realize things and feel good. But I never really thought about it as therapeutic. And I never really knew of the benefits for mental health until my later years. And somehow, like, I don't even know, just randomly came across it. So, how did you know to research that for depression?
So, this is part of that interconnectivity that is so beautiful, is like, I think mushrooms and I mean, any entheogen, it helps you connect with your body more, right? So when I got postpartum, I was like, this is an immense amount of feelings like that seem real disproportionate to what's going on. I love my kids. I'm happy, but something is not right in my body. And it's not something that I'm doing wrong. So it was like, I want to respond with love to what's going on, but an antidepressant I had taken in the past, and I'd had really hard times with like traditional SSRI medications and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So at the time, I was big into Reddit. Do you have a Reddit? Like,
Yeah, I use Reddit from time to time. It's pretty fun.
oh my God, when I was a social worker, so I did death and dying social worker while I was, or social work while I was an alcoholic. Like it was,
What's death and dying
so
social
like
work?
hospice work, like I
Uh,
worked with people that were dying, like, and
which
it was,
is something mushrooms are really useful for as well.
so you see the connections already. It's like, oh
Yeah,
my God, there's a purpose behind all of these little things that have been kind of weird about me. Yet like
yeah,
they will come together and it's kind of
yeah,
beautiful. But
yeah.
and that's why I've always been drawn to like the more spiritual things. But
Mm,
I started researching on Reddit and found a bunch of moms in Europe that were microdosing LSD
mm,
for their postpartum. And so I'm just naturally curious. I reached out to a couple of them and started conversations. And I was like, here's the deal. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Like I am 4 years stone cold sober, but I was at Red Rocks one night with my husband seeing Death Cab for Cutie. And I'm looking around and I had the thought that my sons and my husband would be better off without me. And I
yeah,
was like, that's not a normal thought, Molly. Like, and that's when I was like, okay, I need to do something about all of this research I've done with these moms. So it was
right.
like I had compiled a bunch of evidence and like I read I can't remember if I read
You
it
still
before I tried.
you still talk to these European moms?
I got off Reddit for so long, but I bet you I could find her in the messages.
Yeah, we gotta find her. That'd be
We
fun.
should feel like you
Yeah,
did this because
yeah,
one in particular, I remember she kind of intimidated me because I sent her a message about my insecurity of using drugs as an addict.
yep.
And
That's
her response was so apt that I'll never forget it. She said, I will not dignify that with a response so long as mommy wine culture exists.
yeah. Well, not. I mean, I
I was
agree
like,
with that, but I'll even take that further. Like, everyone coffee culture or everyone
anything.
sugar
Yes.
culture, like sugar and caffeine and alcohol are probably three of the most destructive things that we could do to ourselves. And they're like promoted and celebrated and shoved at you. The
From
whole
when you're
country's
little.
obese. The whole country's like at risk of diabetes. The whole country's on edge from caffeine.
Yep.
And it's like those things are not helping us. So if everyone was doing mushrooms instead of caffeine, sugar, and alcohol,
I'm
I'm
telling
pretty
you.
sure we'd be having a dope ass world.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine work-life balance? I mean,
Yeah.
I told my 16-year-old a couple weeks ago, I was like, Brady, think about this. Coffee, it's a plant medicine.
Hmm.
Cannabis is a plant medicine. Why was this one made legal? Why was this one promoted and this one was not? These are
Right.
just asked questions like that. Like, why is caffeine pushed in our society so much? Because it benefits the wheel. Like
Yeah. Exactly.
mushrooms don't.
Yep. If
Mushrooms
you,
make you want to take it apart and build a new thing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. So, that's awesome that you remember that quote. That's definitely
Yeah.
something that resonates with me a lot. So she
Yeah.
told you this, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna try it out.
So then at the time we had asked and let my nephew live with us. And like, so I was super Christian. So was my husband, but my nephew lived in our basement and he was like big pothead, listens to the best music. He's a weeb. He's the coolest kid in the world. Like, but he worked at the time in the service industry. So I was like,
He
maybe
can
I
find
could.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, could I even make this a reality if I wanted to? He was able to make some connections with someone. I ended up making a connection with a naturopath in Denver because at the time this had
Well,
just
yeah,
been
in Denver, it's definitely like one of the easier places to find it. Also,
absolutely.
now you can literally go into some stores and get it in Denver. It's amazing.
No way.
Like not legally, but like
Right.
more or less in dispensaries. There's some that will like carry it or
God, that's awesome.
yeah,
And I'm
Denver.
telling you,
It's huge right now.
it's so cool to see because living there is what allowed this to happen for me. Because I was like, in May of 2019, I think is when they decriminalized.
Mm.
I tripped June 3rd, 2019.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it was like, or maybe July 3rd, but I mean, it was like within a month of it being decriminalized because I was still paranoid. So it's like, I have no shame talking about this shit because it's like, this saves lives and people in Denver are living this out. But I
Yeah.
mean, so we,
Wait, so you did a full trip, or you start off by microdosing, or
I talked to those moms and they were like, listen, with the way you're feeling, because it was not that I had any suicidal ideation, but I was at a point where I was like, I was not doing well. And they were like, microdosing is wonderful. But they were like, have you explored maybe taking one heroic trip and then trying microdosing after that? And so
and then
that's when
did
I
you have someone help you with that trip? Because that's a little intense, or can be scary or
I
whatever.
did it. My husband and I did so much research on set and setting and maybe just some somatic ways to deactivate a bad trip if that's a thing. But I just went and we went to our favorite place outside in the mountains where we could be apart or we had a ton of water. Like we felt very safe. Our boys were with a babysitter for 12 hours. And
Oh, wow.
so
Nice.
I think where
To the babysitter to ask, like, what are you guys doing?
it was the best when we came down and my pupils were like, was like, hi, can I hug you?
That's awesome.
It was, but I'm telling you, that day in the mountains, I have some pictures. I have a little video of us giggling our asses off. But we ended up, my partner and I, we are both come from a lot of trauma and addiction. And obviously we met in a shit show, but then we have these kids but we sat in the mountains that day and talked. I mean, we joked that it was like 10 years of counseling. We talked about things that we hadn't talked to anybody about before. And I came out of the mountains that day with just this simple, and it's not profound at all, but I remember packing up our camp and looking at my husband and saying, we are doing well by our children.
Hmm.
And that's what my loop was, is I was like, I shouldn't be a mom. Like, why am I'm not good enough to have these little perfect things. And I came out of the mountains like, holy shit, no, I am meant for these little perfect things. Like I am the one that they came to. So it was like in a short amount of time, I really felt like it was that radical of a shift. Came out of the
Yeah.
mountains and I was like, here we go. Let's try microdosing. And then it literally, my postpartum was gone.
Your postpartum was gone like instantly, and
In,
then you decided to keep microdosing just to keep the good benefits, or
well, I actually didn't microdose for like, I think 4 or 5 months after that. I was just like, this is awesome. Like I was doing great. I was kind of implementing the changes. And then I started microdosing because I started cultivating.
there we go. You told me you pivot quick and big. So
I found the Uncle Ben tech
nice. There we go. On Reddit,
subreddit.
I'm sure. On Reddit.
Yes, yes,
Yep.
you
Uh,
know it.
yeah. So you found Uncle Ben Tech and you found some spores
Do
and
you
you
actually, to give myself some cred, Uncle Bentech hadn't even started. It was at the time, the first thing I tried was brown rice flour
a
and
BRF Tech. BRF Tech. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And then when Uncle Bentech started taking off and getting more notoriety, oh hell yeah, I switched right over and then had some success and it was amazing.
Nice. What do you know what variety you grew? Like penis envy or
I did
golden
grow
peach?
penis envy.
Penis
Or
envy?
no, I grew penis envy the last flush I did. I think the first one, I think I just did golden teachers.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
now you still do you trip? When's like the last time you tripped?
Like full trip,
Yeah.
like heroic.
Yeah. Or like, yeah, big enough.
God, not long. It's been too long. I'm like,
Yeah,
come to
maybe.
Kansas City, dude.
There you go. But you still microdose regularly?
Yes.
And you do you follow like a protocol like Fadiman or STEM's protocol, or you just do it as you feel, or what?
So I it's I don't mind going intuitive with it, but when I am following a protocol, I try to do 1 day on, 2 days off, 1 day on, 2 days off, and I have to take it with niacin. Like
Yeah, okay. So you
but so the Stammet stack research was
it's huge.
prolific,
Yeah.
but I freaking love taking it with niacin.
We have a blend with niacin that we've actually
No.
yeah, I have to send you. We haven't had it in stock,
Yeah.
but I'll definitely send you that one.
Oh, you're the man.
Yeah, because it's fun to try different mixes and like see
Yeah.
what works for you. And I feel like it's a good thing and a bad thing that it's so random and it varies so much per person. Like uh,
Right.
point one could be an effect for someone that it takes point three for someone else.
That's
Someone,
my
so,
that's my husband and I.
yeah,
So I have a giant tolerance. He has
yeah,
a baby tolerance. So
yeah.
that's great for me to remember because it's not across the board. You're right.
Exactly. And then something actually we're trying to do some research on is we've noticed that there's like different species sometimes give different people effects. So we're trying to like aggregate data on that because Golden Teacher might make you feel this way, but Gandalf might make you feel this way, penis
Yes.
might make you feel this way a little bit. Kind of like a
Oh my God. I mean, it's like kind of getting into the strange science of cannabis. Like,
exactly the
why not?
entourage effect of all of that with the terpenes and the
Hell yeah.
yep,
Dude,
exactly.
good for you.
But
I'm like, let me know. I'd love
yeah.
to in the research.
Well, so that's going to get me to my next question. It seems like you're trying to now get into the world of microdosing or tripping or mushrooms.
Yeah.
So are you thinking of becoming like a microdose coach? Are you already a microdose coach? Because I think you like offer it. What's that looking like, or what's the plan for that?
It's been exciting. I had all of these plans to roll out a bunch of changes. And then behind the scenes, my partner and I we're actually selling our house and going through a bunch of stuff. So it's all good. But for about the next month, things are probably going to be a little crazy as we move. But after that, I've been working on like not a curriculum, but a really loose and more like a demystified microdosing, like more approachable. You know what I mean? I'm trying to figure out a way that maybe a program for connecting and helping yourself with where you are emotionally, whether you're microdosing or not. But
Nice.
something that if you're microdosing, that you like increase that body connection and can start capitalizing on what they're doing. But yeah, I would love to begin coaching. My dream, dude, is to do retreats. Like
Do
I
retreats?
so yeah.
Yeah,
Like
that'd be so. I guess your training as a social worker kind of has you set up for that.
yeah.
But have you looked into? I guess there's a lot of like programs now to train people to be a therapist and all of that, a psychedelic therapist. I have mixed feelings on those. I feel because like some of them just seem like money grabs,
That's
and
totally.
they'll tell you like, oh, make sure you have plenty of water. And like, I know as a psychedelic therapist, I should make sure that people have plenty of water. Like some of the things are found on
Yeah.
Reddit if you just research. I'm sure some of them do have some good practices and insights and all that. But would you try and do something like that, or you think you have it figured out and you're ready to do it? I think you got it figured out. To be honest, I'll tell you that.
I love you. The way that, okay, so I did do some due diligence of researching the programs, but I'm with you, man, that I'm like, I feel like you and I got into this intuitively and for our own help, like to help figure them out ourselves. That research is so much more valuable than what they're offering. I'm like, it's a very 101 kind of thing. So I understand people want that for the credibility, but I threw on my Instagram the other day that I'm an entheogenic minister. I'm like, I'm
Nice.
not going to get a damn certification. That's what I am.
Yeah, I agree. What do you call like a preacher woman?
A preacher woman.
Preacher woman Molly. Nice. I like it. But so have you ever tried any of the other psychedelic therapies?
Yes.
And would you be trying to do retreats with that as well? I've looked into and I'm really intrigued by Iboga, Cambo, ayahuasca. I still want to do, but that one for some reason, I don't know. I'm not as excited to try that. I don't
I
know.
know that
But
from what you hear.
yeah, exactly. But would you be trying to do those as well, or you think you just do psilocybin trips, or
The way that I see it, my between just personal struggles, like personal life stuff, and the use of entheogens, like or psychedelics alongside that, I am so much less intimidated by myself these days, if that makes sense. My fears for other psychedelics or taking LSD or ayahuasca or DMT, like was always a fear of myself, if that makes sense. And now it's like I feel confident trying those things because I understand set and setting more. And I
right?
am less fearful of what this is, if that makes sense. So I would love to do that shit, but I would love to like pick the people that I got to. You know what I mean? But dude, you and I'm like, I would love to explore with someone like you who understands this world of like expansive thinking. It would be fun to try some of the other psychedelics with someone like you who has experience. So
Well,
keep me on your list.
we'll definitely make it happen, because I think retreats are also something that I'm interested in. I think it's awesome. It's I think just having a retreat, even without psychedelics, can be very therapeutic, and then adding therapeutic psychedelics just makes it like a lifetime memorable event.
And that's what this is where it's funny, but it's like my history in the church informs that, because there's retreats all the time in the church, no psychedelics, but you see the power of communal healing.
Yeah, and it's going to be in nature. You're in beautiful settings and all. That's awesome. So I think that's about all. I mean, I have a million more questions I can ask you. We could talk all day, but I don't want to make people listen to podcasts for hours and hours. But what's called? Thank you so much. I guess, do you have any closing thoughts, things you want to say, share, advice, anything else?
I think right now it's like, it's gratitude for you, man, for what you're doing and for what you've put out, because I have sat back in the, oh, this is an illegal thing and I'm a mom and I can't talk, but I know in my truest that this is good and this is healing. And so to see somebody else carrying the torch so confidently, it's made it easier for me to speak more openly about it. So thank you.
That's awesome. That gives me the chills a little bit. Thank you so much.
Yes, awesome. I'm grateful.
Well, thank you so much. And hopefully I can have you on again sometime.
Hell yeah.
We'll chat more. And then if we ever do a psychedelic retreat together, we'll make sure to film that for people, and people can check that out too.
Can you imagine? It's going to be the best.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And